I'm gonna show you guys how to build out the ultimate handheld cinematic rig with your Blackmagic Pocket 4K and 6K. Let's get into it. So the Blackmagic Pocket came out earlier this year, 4K, 6K. It really got us thinking, how can we use these in weddings? And there's a lot of obvious shortfalls, the lack of continuous autofocus, the very, very poor battery life because of the small Canon batteries that they chose to use. But then there's a lot of positives, right? The 13 stops of dynamic range, obviously the super high resolution, and of course the number one positive, which is that BRAW file, which is just ridiculous. One of the other things that we were looking at doing is we wanted to start using cinema lenses for one of our wedding products. And we said, what better thing to couple these cinema lenses than with a camera that doesn't have any autofocus, because we can't do it anyway. And so for us, we viewed it as an opportunity to get cinema quality Kodak and cinema quality lenses together for weddings filmmaking. But it presented a lot of challenges. How do we hold this stuff all day? It's very heavy. How do we power it? It's very power hungry. How do we control the follow focus on, if you've never seen a cinema lens, like the throw on these things are just, you can't really hand follow focus these things super effectively, not in every situation at least. And so we knew we had to have a rig that was handheld, that had a lot of power, that uses something like a V-mount battery, and that also would allow us to control a follow focus remotely on something like one of these handles. And so we said, how do we build out the ultimate cinematic wedding rig using Blackmagic and cinema lenses? And so we started building this rig out. It took us like a couple months, and to be honest, we're still perfecting it. If you're out there a rig builder, you're looking to build rigs, just know the process never ends. You're gonna always find things you like and don't like. And not only that, this is very personal. So this is the rig that we use, and it's a base rig, and sometimes we don't even rig it up this way. And it might not be what you wanna do, but hopefully it'll at least show you how to think about rigging and some of the philosophies that go into it, like Frankensteining, and some of the terms you need to know to build your ultimate rig. So if you're new to the world of rigging cameras, it can be pretty intimidating, but I want to make it really simple for you. You really have two main basic types of camera cages. You have a full cage like this one by Small Rig, and you have a half cage like this one by Small Rig as well. So when we first got these Blackmagics, I was looking for something that had a top handle and a lot of different parts, because I wanted to avoid having to do all this rigging. And so I wanted like a kit that had everything I wanted. And so I found this kit by iCan, and I was like, oh, this has a top handle, it's got the bottom rails, it's got everything I want. I'm gonna get this kit. Little did I know that this thing was actually terrible, and terrible. And I'm gonna show you why. This right here. So this is what you call like a hybrid cage, and it has the ability to convert from a full cage to a half cage, which is actually not a really great feature, because the way that they accomplish this is they have all different screws. And so here's what I'll tell you. And this thing's moving around. You can actually hear the scraping. You can hear that on camera. So what I would tell you is, do not buy a cage that is made of multiple pieces. You want to buy a single unibody cage. That's what I'll tell you. Either a full unibody cage or a half unibody cage will do you. These Small Rig cages are very affordable. I think like $80 for this full cage, and it is built like a tank. Like, yeah, can't bend it, it's too strong. As opposed to this thing, like you can just like hear this thing, it's bad. You don't want it. So, unibody cage, full or half. That's the cages you want to look at. I recommend the Small Rigs because I've used them. There are probably a bunch of other ones that are quite good. Wooden Camera makes very nice cages and very nice equipment. There's a range of other manufacturers, but just make sure it's a unibody. So once you've determined the cage you want to use, then you want to start thinking about powering the rig. And so we knew we wanted our battery to be able to do a bunch of very specific things. I didn't want a ton of batteries on the cage. I didn't want to have to deal with having to remember to keep a million things charged. And so I was like, what kind of battery will do everything? How do I power my handle, my follow focus, my camera, and my monitor all at the same time. And so we went V-mount battery. You don't have to go V-mount. There's a lot of other batteries out there. The length of time that you're able to record on a V-mount was important to us because it's a event coverage and you never know how long it's gonna be before you get back to your charging station and all that. But also, we wanted to be able to power a lot of different things. So we went V-mount. If you've never used a V-mount battery, it's a battery that looks like this. We have a couple other ones. We have the Power Base, which is actually what I'm recommending now. They don't even make this model anymore. We use the Power Base, which actually has a bunch of these P-tap, D-tap kind of things, as well as USB. And we power our follow focus off this battery. We power our camera off this battery. We power our monitor off this battery. Pretty much everything runs off one battery on our entire system. So that's why we went this direction. Once you determine that, it's really important because the size of your rig is really based on the size of your battery, how much space you need to operate this battery. And a V-mount rig is a beefier, more cinematic style rig. And this is how we chose to do it. These batteries are not cheap. They're about $200 each, but they have a lot of benefits. So when you decide on your battery, you need a battery plate. The plate that we chose to get is the Indy Pro V-mount 15mm rails plate. It's a regulated plate, which means it maintains a certain level of voltage. You need to use regulated voltages if you're using a battery because that actually will void the warranty on your camera if you fry the camera and you're not using regulated voltages. I just want to show you guys really quick how we mounted the plate to the rail block. So you have basically a cheese plate attached to this, and I found a way to kind of slip it in there and make it that it was the same size. And actually I had to take the two screws. This thing came off. I had to screw it from the inside. So I take this plate off, screw the plate to the cheese plate, and then put the plastic housing back on the Indy Pro. And in order to get him to screw in, I actually had to do one normal size, like quarter 20 screw, and then they didn't line up. So this is, I think, like an RE size plate, and I had to get a reducer and take the same size screw. So I know that that's crazy. That is the level you have to get when you want these things to work the way you want them to work. It's a pain. The next thing you want to be thinking about is your storage. Both the 4K and the 6K by Blackmagic have an SD port, which is basically not super usable if you're going to be doing high frame rate B-RAW stuff. It's great for the kind of the lower level ProRes stuff it does, but it also has a CFast card slot, which you may or may not use, but it does allow you to shoot the maximum frame rate and the maximum file size. The CFast is the way to go, but it also provides an awesome option. By the way, this normally has like a little rubber area. We just rip them off because they're annoying to us, but it allows you, using this USB-C port, to run a little SSD. There's a range of SSD holders, and so that was another thing we had to consider when we were building our rig out, is how are we gonna mount this SSD? We have found that the SSD runs the full capability of the camera. We have not had any issues. I have heard about some other people having issues. The thing I'll tell you is many SSDs do work with this camera. Double check Blackmagic's specifications, because they do have a page of approved SSDs that will work and what frame rates they'll work at and what file sizes they will work at. But this is what we chose to do because of how small it is, how affordable it is, and the fact that it is approved across the range of frame rates and codecs and file sizes on the Blackmagics. When you're thinking about rigging out your camera, how you want to shoot is really critical. We wanted to shoot handheld, but also be able to mount it on a monopod or a tripod. We wanted to be able to control it. And so we looked at a lot of solutions, and we arrived at is this Nucleus M by Tilta and this Nucleus N by Tilta. So keep in mind, these are different systems. The M and the N are different systems, and so you'd have to do a little bit of tweaking to make them compatible and work. It's not hard to do. It's very easy. You just got to change a couple settings in here, but right out of the box, it'll seem like they don't work. This grip allows you to do a bunch of really awesome things. It has this little wheel right here, which controls the follow focus motor, as well as this button right here, which you can actually make control the start-stop button on the Blackmagic. That leads me to this little thing. I believe it's pronounced Bleak. Small little website, and we're gonna post it in the document for those that are like wanting to know what we bought. But this right here plugs into a port on your follow focus motor, like this. And then by using the Bluetooth on the Blackmagic, as well as a couple other mumbo jumbo tricks, it actually allows you to trigger the camera's record button from here. Disclaimer, I have found this piece of equipment to be a little unreliable and a little spotty, but it does work basically. And if you need this kind of feature, it is available. There's probably a lot of other guys hitting the market soon that are having a similar or better solution, and I know they're even at Bleak, they're manufacturing another solution as well. So it's only a matter of time before this kind of solution is going to be all over the place, and you're going to be able to easily trigger the record button. But for those that know, once you rig up one of these cameras on a shoulder rig or something like that, hitting that record button is not the easiest thing in the world. So we knew we wanted to be able to rig it up in such a way that we could hold the camera like this, not have to go like this, but just hit record. And so that's what we use in order to control our camera. One thing about this Nucleus M, it does take a weird type of battery. Those of you familiar with mini gimbals out there, you are familiar with the 18650 batteries. The problem is it doesn't just work with any 18650 battery. A lot of batteries you get don't work. So when you buy this, make sure that you go to their website and actually look at what they're recommending and just go ahead and buy that one, because it will fit. Because when you look at this thing, it actually is a super, super, super tight connection. I'll show you, it barely closes. You're gonna think it's not gonna work and you have to jam it down there. Well guys, that's the end of part 1. We cannot wait for you to check out part 2 of how to build the ultimate Blackmagic handheld rig. Just go ahead, click the link at the top, and be sure to subscribe to the channel. We got a bunch of other content like this. And be sure to check out the Wedding Pros podcast as well. See you guys later.